Commander Arik Hale stepped out of the shimmering transport pod, his boots making a soft thud against the polished floor of the palace. The walls glowed with soft hues of blue and violet, casting strange reflections on his uniform. He had walked into many alien environments before, but nothing compared to the grandeur of the Zetherian palace. Floating platforms moved silently along the high ceilings, and translucent crystal structures twisted in ways that defied gravity. He could feel the hum of energy in the air, a quiet vibration that seemed alive, almost like the palace itself was watching him. Eric's mind raced as he adjusted the strap of his communicator. His mission was simple in theory: represent humanity, maintain the fragile truce with the Zetherians, and show that humans could be trusted allies. In practice, it was far more complicated. The Zetherians had a reputation for being secretive and proud. They valued intelligence and cunning above all else, and outsiders, especially humans, were often seen as unpredictable. Eric knew that one wrong move could turn a diplomatic mission into a disaster. "Commander Hale," a soft, melodic voice said behind him. Eric turned to see a Zetherian aide, tall and slender, their skin shimmering like liquid silver. "The Queen awaits. Please follow me." Eric nodded and followed silently. The corridors curved and twisted, leading him to a vast hall where the ceiling seemed to disappear into a sky of swirling light. The air was filled with a faint, sweet scent, and the soft sounds of flowing energy echoed through the space. Courtiers stood along the walls, their eyes fixed on Eric as he entered. Every movement was measured, every gaze curious and calculating. He felt the weight of their attention but forced himself to stay calm. At the far end of the hall sat the Queen, Lysara. She was unlike anything Eric had ever seen. Her skin shimmered with iridescent colors, changing subtly with her movements. Her eyes were deep pools of golden light, and her presence commanded absolute authority. Even the courtiers seemed to shrink slightly in her presence, their usual pride replaced by a cautious reverence. Eric stepped forward, keeping his posture straight. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing slightly. "I am Commander Eric Hale, representing the people of Earth. It is an honor to be here." The Queen's gaze measured him silently. Then, with a subtle nod, she gestured for him to rise. "Commander Hale," she said, her voice both melodic and firm, "we have heard of your deeds among your people. Yet here, you are not judged by your past actions but by the choices you make today. Tell me, why should the Zetherians trust humans?" Eric took a deep breath. He had prepared for this question, but hearing it spoken aloud in such a commanding voice made it feel heavier than he expected. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "humans have made mistakes. But we also have courage, loyalty, and the ability to learn from our errors. We have fought against impossible odds, and we have survived. I believe those qualities, honesty, bravery, and compassion, are universal. They are the same qualities that can build trust between our peoples." The Queen's gaze did not waver. Her expression remained unreadable, but Eric thought he saw the faintest hint of curiosity in her eyes. Before she could respond, a sudden sound broke the tension in the hall. A small voice called out clearly, unexpectedly, "Dad." Eric froze, his heart skipping a beat. Every eye in the palace turned toward a small figure rushing toward him. It was a child, no taller than his waist, with bright, shimmering skin similar to the Queen's. But the shock came not from the child's appearance, it came from the fact that the child called him Dad. The courtiers gasped. Some stepped back, some whispered urgently to each other, and even Queen Lysara's golden eyes widened slightly. Eric instinctively bent down as the child leapt into his arms, wrapping tiny arms around his neck. I don't understand," Eric stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who? How?" The child's grip was firm, but full of affection. "I knew you," Kale said softly. "I remember you. You promised to protect me." Arik's mind raced. He had no memory of ever meeting this child, yet here was a small being claiming him as a father. How could it be possible? The palace was silent, waiting for some explanation. The courtiers' eyes were wide with shock, and even the queen seemed momentarily lost for words. Lysara finally spoke, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "Kale, what are you saying?" Kale's eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and hope. I remember him. He saved me once. Before everything changed. I was small, scared, and he promised to protect me. I knew I would see him again." Eric held Kale tightly, his own confusion and disbelief battling with a strange warmth in his chest. Could it be possible? Could he have somehow crossed paths with this child in a way that defied his own memory? The child's certainty and emotion were undeniable. "Your Majesty," Eric said, straightening slightly while still holding Kale. I don't remember this event. But the child knows me, and he trusts me. That is all I can say at this moment." The courtiers murmured among themselves, some in awe, some in suspicion. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but the sight of one being embraced by a royal Zetherian child caused a stir unlike anything the palace had seen in decades. Kale's trust in Eric challenged centuries of tradition. Queen Lysara's voice cut through the murmurs. This is impossible." She looked down at her child, her expression a mixture of disbelief and protectiveness. "Kale, you cannot simply claim such things." "I remember," Kale said firmly. "He is my father. He saved me. I am not lying." Eric's chest tightened. Despite his confusion, he felt a protective instinct awaken. The child's trust was real, and something inside him recognized a bond that went beyond memory or reason. He gently stroked Kale's head. "I don't understand yet, Kale. But I will not let anything harm you. I promise you that." The courtiers leaned in, whispering furiously. This was unprecedented. Humans had never been part of royal Zetherian family life. Some saw it as a threat, a destabilizing factor. Others saw it as a miracle, proof that humans could indeed form bonds that transcended species and logic. Kale clung tighter, his small body trembling with emotion. "You promised," he repeated. "You promised." Eric felt a strange warmth spread through him. He had faced enemies, disasters, and countless dangers, but nothing had ever struck him like this. A small alien child, calling him father, had upended everything he thought he knew about his mission and his place in the universe. Queen Lysara studied him, her expression unreadable once more. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well, Commander Hale," she said. "You have a connection, inexplicable though it may be. We will observe this carefully. Do not disappoint us, for the eyes of the entire palace are upon you now." Eric straightened, still holding Kale. "I will do my best, Your Majesty. That is all I can promise." As the court watched in stunned silence, Kale rested his head against Eric's chest, his small fingers clutching at the human's uniform. The bond, unexplainable and immediate, was now undeniable. Even in a palace of centuries-old tradition, something new had begun, something that neither time nor species could easily undo. The courtiers whispered among themselves, Queen Lysara's golden gaze never leaving them. Outside, the palace shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and the soft hum of energy seemed almost alive, as if it recognized the unusual bond forming within its walls. Eric, for his part, felt a strange sense of purpose awaken inside him. Whatever had brought Kale to call him Dad, he would not abandon the child. Not here, not now, and not ever. In the silence of the palace, a new story had begun, one that would challenge centuries of tradition, reshape alliances, and prove that humanity, in its courage and compassion, could touch even the most alien of hearts. The palace hall slowly quieted after the shocking moment. Eric stood, still holding Kale, his mind spinning with questions. How could a Zytherian child call him Dad? How could Kale remember him when he had no memory of ever meeting the boy? The answers seemed impossible, yet Kale's eyes held a certainty that no one could ignore. Queen Lysara remained seated on her throne, her posture still regal, but her eyes betraying a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Kael," she said carefully, "you are claiming something that defies reason. Tell me everything you remember." Kael shifted slightly in Eric's arms but did not let go. I don't remember all of it. But I remember him. He was kind. He saved me when I was small, and he promised to protect me. I felt safe with him," the courtiers whispered in disbelief. "Humans were clever and brave, yes, but forming bonds with a royal Zetherian child? That was unheard of." Some frowned, concerned about tradition. Others leaned forward, intrigued by this unprecedented situation. Eric swallowed hard, trying to focus. He had dealt with dangerous missions, alien technology, and life-threatening situations. But none of it compared to this. He carefully lowered Kael onto the ground, kneeling to be at the child's level. "Kael," he said gently, "I don't remember meeting you before. But I do promise this. While I am here, no harm will come to you. I will protect you. Just as you say I promised." Kael's eyes glimmered with relief. "You do remember now, don't you?" Eric shook his head. "No, Kael. Not yet. But maybe. Maybe some things are meant to be felt, not remembered. And I feel the need to protect you." Queen Lysara's expression softened slightly, though she remained cautious. "Commander Hale," she said, her voice steady. "Your words are honest. But this is more than a personal matter. Kael's claims challenge our history, our records, and the stability of this palace. You must understand the gravity of this situation." "I understand, Your Majesty," Eric replied. "But my concern is the child. I cannot ignore his trust." The Queen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. You will remain under observation. We will seek to understand what Kael remembers. Perhaps there is truth in his claims that even our scholars cannot explain." The courtiers exchanged whispers. Some skeptical, others fascinated. Eric could feel their scrutiny like a weight pressing against him. But he did not flinch. His attention was entirely on Kael, who now looked around the hall with wide, curious eyes. "Come," Lysara said after a pause. "We will walk to a quieter chamber. Kael, you will explain everything to Commander Hale there. And you," she said, turning to Eric, "will listen carefully." Eric followed, keeping close to Kael. The palace corridors twisted and curved, lined with luminous walls that pulsed gently as if alive. Kael's tiny hand held his, surprisingly strong for a child of his size. Eric glanced down at him, noticing the determination in the boy's eyes. It was clear Kael was not just any child. He had endured experiences that left a mark on him, and somehow, he remembered those moments vividly. They entered a chamber bathed in soft golden light. The room was simple compared to the grandeur of the hall, but it radiated warmth and calm. Kael climbed onto a low seat while Eric took the chair opposite him, leaning slightly forward to make the boy comfortable. "Kael," Eric began gently, "start from the beginning. Tell me everything you remember about me, about the promise I made, about the time we shared." Kael took a deep breath. "It was a long time ago. I was small, smaller than I am now. You were different, not like the other humans. You were kind. You didn't treat me like I was weak. You helped me when I was scared. You promised to protect me, even though you didn't know me. I remember your voice, your hands, and the way you looked at me. I knew then that you were someone I could trust." Eric listened intently, every word striking him with a mix of disbelief and awe. How could the boy remember details so precisely? He had no recollection. Yet the emotion in Kael's voice made it clear this was not a fabrication. "Kael," Arik said softly, "I wish I could remember. But if what you say is true, then I must have been there for you. I may not recall it, but I can feel it. And that feeling, tells me you were right to trust me." Kale's eyes brightened, and a small smile appeared. "You do care," he said simply. Eric nodded. "I care. And I promise. I will keep that promise now. No matter what happens, I will not let anything hurt you." Outside the chamber, the palace stirred with unease. Word of Kale's declaration had spread quickly, and courtiers debated endlessly about its meaning. Some questioned the child's memories, suspecting manipulation or illusion. Others whispered that this Commander Hale, might be a key to a new era. One in which humans and Zetherians could coexist on a deeper level than anyone had imagined. The Queen observed from a distance, her mind working through every possibility. Kale's memories suggested a connection that defied conventional understanding. Time, space, and memory had intersected in ways that scholars had only theorized about. And the fact that a human was at the center of this mystery was intriguing. Meanwhile, Eric spent the day learning more about Kale. The child had extraordinary perception, noticing small details that most Zetherian adults overlooked. He could sense intentions, detect subtle changes in the environment, and anticipate events before they happened. Eric realized that Kale's abilities, combined with his trust in humans, could bridge gaps between the two species that had seemed insurmountable. During a quiet moment, Kale tugged at Eric's hand. "Will you teach me things? About your world? About humans?" Eric smiled gently. "I will. And I will learn from you too. We will help each other, Kale. That is what families do." Kale's smile widened, and for the first time since their meeting, Eric felt a sense of calm. The bond between them was real, undeniable, and it was growing stronger with every passing moment. Later, as night fell over the palace, Lysara summoned Eric to a private council. She did not hide her curiosity. "Commander Hale," she said, "Kale's memories are extraordinary. If they are true, they suggest events that none of our scholars could have recorded. I must ask you, do you believe him?" Eric considered carefully. "Your Majesty, I do. I may not remember the events, but the boy's trust is real. That is enough for me. I will protect him, and I will honor whatever promise I made long ago. I do not need to remember the past to act rightly in the present." The Queen studied him, a faint smile appearing. "You are different from other humans. You understand loyalty and honor in ways that transcend your species. That is impressive." As the night deepened, Eric returned to Kale's quarters. The child was already asleep, curled up with a small toy that looked almost alive, its surface glowing softly. Eric watched him for a long moment, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Protecting Kale would not be easy. There were those in the court who would see him as a threat, and there were dangers in the universe that no one could predict. Yet, Eric felt ready. For Kale, he would face anything. The next morning, the palace was alive with activity. Courtiers moved quickly, whispering, observing, and speculating. Eric could feel their eyes on him as he walked through the corridors. But he ignored them, focusing entirely on Kale, who ran alongside him with boundless energy and curiosity. "Commander Hale," Kale exclaimed, "show me the training room. I want to learn to be strong like you." Eric laughed softly. "All right, Kale, let's start your lessons. But remember, being strong isn't just about fighting. It's about understanding, thinking ahead, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Kale nodded seriously, absorbing every word. "I understand. I want to be strong, and I want to protect." Eric felt a swell of pride. The boy was extraordinary, not just in his abilities but in his heart. Humanity's qualities, courage, loyalty, and compassion were already shining through in Kale, even as a Zetherian child. The day passed with training, lessons, and exploration. Eric and Kale navigated the palace's complex architecture, practiced tactical thinking exercises, and shared stories about their respective worlds. Eric noticed that the courtiers watched from a distance, some impressed, some suspicious, but none could deny the bond growing between human and child. By the end of the day, Kale was exhausted but happy. He sat next to Arik, leaning against him. "I'm glad I found you," he said softly. Arik smiled, feeling the truth in those words. "I'm glad too, Kale. Together, we will face whatever comes next." The palace, for all its grandeur and mystery, had never seen anything like this before. A human and a Zetherian child, bound by trust, courage, and an unexplainable connection. The world outside the palace might be filled with danger, but inside, a new story had begun. One that could change the fate of both species, forever. The next morning, the palace was alive with activity. Courtiers whispered among themselves, some still in awe of the unusual bond between Commander Arik Hale and Kale, the Zetherian child. Others watched with suspicion, wary of a human gaining influence in the palace. Arik felt the weight of their attention, but his focus remained on Kale. The child had already begun asking questions about human tactics, ethics, and ways of thinking, and Arik was eager to teach him. Kale ran ahead, his small legs moving swiftly across the glowing corridors. "Come on, Commander Hale. I want to see the training grounds today. I want to learn everything." Arik laughed, a sound that echoed softly in the chamber. "All right, Kale. But remember, learning isn't just about strength. You must think, observe, and understand. That is what makes someone truly powerful." The training area was a large hall suspended over a vast pit of energy that pulsed like a living thing. Platforms floated at different heights, connected by thin bridges that tested balance and agility. Zetherian students, older children of noble families, practiced with glowing weapons and energy shields. They stopped briefly, their eyes flicking toward Kale and Arik. Some were curious, others skeptical. Kale's eyes shone with excitement. "I can do this! I can be strong!" Arik placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Strength is not just about fighting, Kale. It is about protecting, planning, and keeping your mind calm, even in danger. Today, I will teach you all three." The lesson began with observation. Arik had Kale watch the other students carefully, noting how they moved, where they made mistakes, and how they protected themselves. The boy's sharp eyes missed nothing. He asked questions that showed insight beyond his years. Why did he step there? Why did she lower the shield too soon? Arik smiled. Humans and Zetherians often approached problems differently, and Kale seemed to understand both perspectives. As they practiced, a sudden alarm blared through the palace. Red lights flashed along the corridors, and a loud voice echoed. "Intruders in the palace! All units to defense positions." Arik's heart sank. He knew the palace was politically unstable. There were factions opposed to human influence, factions that saw Kale as a threat to their traditions. This was likely an attack orchestrated by those who opposed any change. He looked at Kale, who stood tall despite the fear in his eyes. "Stay close to me, Kale," Arik said firmly. "We must protect ourselves and the palace." Without hesitation, Arik grabbed a nearby energy staff, its surface glowing as he activated it. Kale's eyes widened, but he mimicked Arik instinctively, summoning a small shield of his own. The two moved through the hall, alert to every sound. Rogue Zetherian guards, loyal to a faction opposed to the Queen's decision to allow humans close to the royal family, emerged from hidden passages. Their weapons glowed red, and their faces were set with anger and determination. They saw Arik as an outsider, and Kale as a tool to be controlled. Arik's mind worked quickly. Humans were not as physically powerful as Zetherians, but ingenuity and strategy were his strengths. He dodged the first attacker's strike, pivoted, and sent a controlled energy pulse that knocked the assailant off balance. Kale followed, using his shield to deflect attacks while observing the pattern of the enemy's movements. Together, they moved as a team. Arik directed Kale, showing him how to anticipate attacks and respond with precision. Kale adapted quickly, his abilities enhanced by his trust in Arik. The courtiers who had gathered watched in amazement as the human and child navigated the attack with coordination and calm. Queen Lysara appeared at the balcony above, her golden eyes scanning the scene. She had summoned elite palace guards, but she observed Eric closely, realizing that his approach was unconventional, yet effective. Humans, she thought, had qualities the Zetherians often underestimated: adaptability, courage, and an instinct to protect rather than dominate. The battle intensified. The rogue guards worked in pairs, attempting to overwhelm Arik and Kale. But Arik's tactics kept them off balance. He used the environment to his advantage, guiding Kale across floating platforms, through narrow corridors, and behind glowing energy pillars for cover. Kale's shield deflected attacks that would have harmed even seasoned warriors, and his small hands could manipulate energy devices with surprising skill. At one point, a guard lunged at Kale, but Eric reacted instinctively, intercepting the strike and sending the attacker sprawling. Kale's eyes shone with relief and admiration. "You're amazing, Commander Hale," he shouted. Eric smiled briefly, keeping his focus. "We protect each other, Kale. That is the most important lesson." The rogue faction, realizing their initial plan had failed, attempted to retreat and regroup. Arik and Kale did not give them the chance. They moved swiftly through the palace, blocking exits and using clever traps to delay the attackers. Kale's perception was invaluable, allowing them to anticipate movements that even the best-trained Zetherians might miss. After what felt like hours but was only moments, the last of the rogue guards was subdued. Eric and Kale stood together, breathing heavily but unharmed. The palace guards arrived shortly after, securing the hall and reporting that the threat was neutralized. The courtiers who had witnessed the fight were silent at first, then erupted in murmurs of awe. Humans, they realized, were not just clever, they were capable of bravery, ingenuity, and leadership in ways that could challenge even the most skilled Zetherians. Queen Lysara descended from the balcony, her expression unreadable at first. She approached Arik and Kale, her eyes scanning them carefully. "Commander Hale," she said slowly, "your actions today have shown qualities that even our best warriors do not always display. Courage, strategy, and an unwavering dedication to another being. These are remarkable. You have proven that humans can indeed be trusted allies, perhaps more than anyone imagined." Eric nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Kale's safety was my priority. That is all that mattered." Kale smiled proudly, his small hands resting on Eric's arm. "We did it together," he said simply. The Queen's gaze softened as she looked at the two of them. "Yes, together," she agreed. "Perhaps this is the beginning of a new understanding between our peoples, one that does not rely on fear, but on trust, loyalty, and shared courage." In the following days, Eric worked closely with Kale and the palace guards. He taught the child more about human strategy, patience, and observation. Kale absorbed everything eagerly, his mind sharp and his heart filled with the trust he had always held for Eric. The courtiers continued to watch, some with admiration, some with hesitation, but none could deny the unusual effectiveness of the human-Zetherian partnership. Eric realized that this bond with Kale was not just personal, it had implications for the future of the planet, the palace, and even the broader alliance between humans and Zetherians. If a human could inspire such trust and courage in a Zetherian child, then perhaps humans could indeed play a central role in shaping a peaceful coexistence between the two species. One evening, as the palace glowed under the soft light of distant stars, Arik sat with Kale in a quiet courtyard. The child leaned against him, exhausted but happy. "Do you think the palace will ever accept us fully?" Kale asked softly. Eric looked down at him and smiled. "They will, Kale. It may take time, and there will be challenges. But when people see what we can do together, they will understand. Trust and courage are stronger than fear." Kale nodded, feeling reassured. "I believe you, Dad." Eric's heart tightened. The word was still strange, still shocking in its significance, but he felt the truth in it. Whatever had happened in the past, whatever had connected them before, it did not matter. What mattered was now. And in this moment, he would protect Kale, guide him, and stand beside him against any threat, alien or otherwise. The palace itself seemed to hum in response, its energy flowing gently around them, as if acknowledging the bond that had been forged in courage, trust, and shared experience. Eric knew that their story was far from over. Challenges would come, enemies would try to divide them, and danger would never truly disappear. But he also knew this: humans had something unique to offer: courage, ingenuity, and the ability to care deeply for others, qualities that even the most advanced civilizations could respect. Together, Eric and Kale would face whatever came next, and in doing so, they would show the Zetherians, and perhaps the universe, that humanity's strengths were not just in technology or power, but in heart, mind, and unbreakable bonds. The palace had never been quieter at night. Stars glittered beyond the crystal walls, and the hum of energy that powered the sprawling structure seemed softer, almost contemplative. Commander Eric Hale walked through the halls, Kale's small hand tightly in his. The events of the past days weighed heavily on him. Yet he felt a sense of purpose, unlike any he had experienced. The bond with Kale had grown stronger with every passing moment, and the palace, for all its grandeur, seemed alive with the promise of change. Queen Lasara summoned Eric to the central chamber. Her golden eyes, usually calm and commanding, held an unusual intensity. "Commander Hale," she began, "the events that have unfolded here have unsettled the palace, but they have also revealed something remarkable. Humans, it seems, possess qualities that even the most advanced Zetherians respect: loyalty, courage, and a sense of justice that cannot be ignored." Eric bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I am honored. I only act according to what I believe is right. Kale's safety is my priority. The rest will follow naturally if we act with honesty and care." The Queen nodded slowly. "Your honesty is rare, and it is exactly what the palace needs. There are factions, however, that do not share our vision. They will not accept a human's influence, nor will they respect the bond between you and Kale. You must be prepared." Eric's jaw tightened. "I am prepared, Your Majesty. Whatever comes, I will protect Kale. That is my promise." Kale, who had been standing quietly beside Eric, looked up at the Queen. "I believe him," he said simply. "He is my dad. He will never let anything happen to me." Lysara's gaze softened, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. "Then it is settled. Let us move forward carefully, and together." The following days were filled with preparation. Eric worked closely with Kale and the palace's elite guards, training, teaching, and planning for potential threats. Kale's abilities continued to grow. His perception sharpened, and his small hands could manipulate energy shields and devices with a precision that impressed even the seasoned Zetherian warriors. Eric marveled at the boy's intelligence, courage, and determination. One evening, while observing the palace from a high balcony, Eric spoke quietly to Kale. "Do you understand, Kale? Some in the palace will never accept us easily. They may try to challenge us, test our bond, or even harm us. But we cannot let fear control us. Courage and trust are stronger than fear." Kale nodded solemnly. "I understand, Dad. I trust you. And I will follow you no matter what." The next morning, the palace was thrown into chaos. A group of rogue Zetherians, more organized and dangerous than the previous attackers, launched a sudden assault. Their weapons glowed menacingly, and their movements were coordinated. They sought to eliminate Kale and drive Eric from the palace, believing that the bond between human and child threatened their authority. Eric reacted immediately. He grabbed Kale, activating a small energy shield to protect them both. "Stay close to me," he instructed. "We will get through this together." The palace guards arrived quickly, but the rogue faction was skilled and relentless. Eric realized that brute force alone would not win this fight. He needed strategy, improvisation, and the kind of courage that humans often relied upon in impossible situations. He directed Kale to use his abilities to create barriers and distractions, while Eric maneuvered through the hallways, leading the attackers into traps and ambushes. Kale's instincts and heightened perception allowed them to anticipate movements, giving them an edge that even seasoned Zetherian fighters struggled to counter. At one point, a group of attackers cornered them near the Grand Hall. Eric assessed the situation quickly. The enemies outnumbered them, and retreat seemed impossible. He knelt briefly to Kale's level. "Remember everything I've taught you. Stay calm, observe, and act with purpose. We can do this." Kale's small hand touched Arik's shoulder. "I'm ready, Dad." With coordinated precision, they turned the tide. Eric used the environment to their advantage, manipulating energy conduits and reflective surfaces to disorient the attackers. Kale's shields deflected deadly strikes and created openings that Eric exploited to neutralize threats without unnecessary harm. The rogue faction, realizing they were losing, attempted a final desperate attack. Eric and Kale moved as one, their trust and coordination undeniable. With a clever feint and a controlled energy pulse, they subdued the last of the assailants. The palace fell silent once more. The danger finally ended. Queen Lysara emerged from the balcony, her expression a mix of relief and admiration. She approached Eric and Kale. "You have proven yourselves beyond doubt. Humans and Zetherians can work together, not just in theory, but in practice. You have shown courage, ingenuity, and the power of trust. It is remarkable." Eric bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Kale and I only did what we believed was right. Protecting him was my duty, and teaching him to be strong was part of that." Kale looked up at the Queen, his small voice firm. "I couldn't have done it without Dad. We did this together." The courtiers, once skeptical and whispering with doubt, now looked on with a mixture of awe and respect. The events had demonstrated something undeniable. Human qualities, bravery, loyalty, and ingenuity were powerful, even in a palace that had never considered humans equals. In the following weeks, Eric and Kale's bond became a symbol of possibility. The palace slowly adapted, allowing humans to participate in advisory roles and cooperative training exercises. Kale's presence inspired other young Zetherians to value qualities like empathy and courage, rather than just strength or tradition. Eric spent hours teaching Kale not just tactics, but philosophy, ethics, and the ways humans thought. Kale absorbed every lesson eagerly, showing remarkable understanding and insight. The boy's abilities, combined with his intelligence and courage, made him a bridge between humans and Zetherians in ways the Queen had only dreamed of. One evening, Eric and Kale walked through the palace gardens, the soft glow of bioluminescent plants casting gentle light around them. Kale looked up at Eric. "Do you think the palace will ever fully accept us?" Eric smiled, placing a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. "I believe they will, Kale. It will take time, and there will be challenges. But what we've shown here, our courage, our trust, our teamwork that cannot be ignored. One day, everyone will see that humans and Zetherians can achieve great things together." Kale's eyes sparkled. "I believe you, Dad. We will make them see." The palace, alive with centuries of history and tradition, seemed to acknowledge their resolve. The energy that pulsed through its halls hummed softly, almost as if it recognized the bond and the courage that had shaped recent events. Eric knew that their journey was far from over. Challenges would come, and enemies would test them, but the human spirit, resilient, compassionate, and brave, had already proven its value. The days that followed were filled with training, diplomacy, and cooperation. Eric worked alongside the Queen and her advisors, teaching them about human strategies, problem-solving, and empathy. Kale continued to grow, learning to blend his Zetherian abilities with the human lessons he had received. Together, they became a force that others in the palace could not ignore. As months passed, the palace began to change subtly. Factions that had opposed human involvement either adapted or faded into obscurity. Young Zetherians began to respect the lessons of courage and loyalty, inspired by Kale's example. The palace itself seemed brighter, more vibrant, alive with the energy of understanding and collaboration. One evening, Eric and Kale stood on the balcony, looking out over the city below. The lights shimmered like stars fallen to the ground, and the soft hum of energy resonated through the palace. Kale leaned against Eric, his small hand in his. "Do you think humans and Zetherians will ever truly understand each other?" Kale asked softly. Eric smiled, looking out at the horizon. "I believe we already are. It takes time, patience, and trust. But we've proven that even the smallest bonds like ours can change the course of history. One day, KL, our story will be remembered, not just here, but across the stars." Kale's eyes glimmered with hope. "I want to help, Dad. I want to protect everyone and make our worlds better." Eric placed a gentle hand on his son's head. "And you will, Kale. Together, we will face every challenge. Together, we will make a difference." The palace hummed with quiet approval, the energy pulsing around them like a living heartbeat. For the first time in centuries, humans and Zetherians saw not just each other, but a future built on trust, courage, and unbreakable bonds. Eric knew that challenges would always exist, and danger would never fully disappear. But he also knew something more important. Humanity's greatest strengths were not in technology or weapons, but in heart, mind, and the willingness to act with courage and compassion. With KL by his side, he felt ready for anything. Together, they represented the best of both worlds. Human ingenuity and courage, Zetherian wisdom and power, and together, they would shape a new era, proving that trust, loyalty, and bravery could change the fate of civilizations. The stars outside the palace twinkled like silent witnesses, watching the beginning of a story that would resonate across time and space. And within the palace walls, a human and a Zetherian child, bound by trust, courage, and a simple, undeniable truth, stood ready to face the universe together.